Okay, picture this. An $800 billion project. Just think about that number for a second.
Yeah,
Huge.
absolutely massive. You hear a figure like that, you immediately think, global superpowers, established economies.
Exactly. But here's the twist. This isn't happening where you might expect. It's unfolding in Burkina Faso.
A small, landlocked country in West Africa.
And it's about so much more than just building power plants. It feels like a real statement, a declaration of independence almost.
It really is. Spearheaded by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, it's presented as a blueprint for, well, a whole new future.
So the scale, $800 billion, that's not just significant for Africa, is it? That's globally significant.
Oh, without a doubt. It signals a major shift, and that's really what we want to unpack in this deep dive, right?
Yeah. How is a nation that's often been, let's say, overlooked, suddenly making such a bold move?
And proving perhaps that Africa can and will control its own destiny. It's a fascinating story.
It really is. But to understand the impact, we need to understand the starting point. So before this ambition, what was life really like in Burkina Faso?
Well, it's important to grasp the context. For decades, you had this persistent struggle with poverty. Resources were limited.
Basic services too, I imagine, like electricity, clean water.
Exactly.
Huh.
Especially outside the main cities. Think about rural villages, where basically when the sun went down, everything stopped.
Wow. Just darkness.
Pretty much.
Wow.
Homes without light, schools without power for evening study, hospitals. I mean, imagine trying to run critical equipment.
Yeah, that's hard to picture. Life-saving machines needing constant power.
Right. And families often relied on, candles or maybe kerosene lamps. Expensive, sometimes dangerous.
And kids trying to study by that light must have been tough.
Extremely. We heard accounts, or the sources mention, doctors sometimes performing urgent procedures basically by candlelight in remote areas.
Okay.
Or families losing someone because, say, a ventilator couldn't run consistently. These aren't abstract problems. They're real daily struggles.
And on top of that, there was the political situation, right? Instability, coups.
Yes, and that instability, often combined with conditional foreign aid, kind of trapped the country. It created this cycle of dependency.
Made it hard to plan long-term, to really take control.
Precisely. It prevented Burkina Faso from fully charting its own course, using its own resources for its own benefit.
Okay, so into this situation steps Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Tell us about him. He took power in 2022.
That's right, after a military coup. And from the start, he projected this image of being young, very determined, and fiercely patriotic.
And he had a clear goal.
Extremely clear. Make Burkina Faso strong, independent, prosperous, and central to that, absolutely central, was electricity.
He saw power as the key.
As the key, not just a utility, but the fundamental building block for unlocking the nation's potential. And not just for Burkina Faso. He saw it benefiting the whole region.
So how did he plan to achieve that? Where did the idea come from?
Well, what's fascinating and quite strategic is how he looked at the Mohune River. It's one of the country's biggest rivers.
And saw potential there.
He saw a massive untapped potential. He envisioned harnessing its flow, turning that water into power.
Which really flips the script, doesn't it? Instead of relying on outside aid or having resources extracted.
Exactly. It directly challenges that old narrative. It says, we have resources, we have the vision, we can build our own future. It's a fundamental shift in mindset.
Okay, so let's dive into the project itself. $800 billion. 11 dams on the Mohune River. The scale is just breathtaking.
It really is. And these aren't small dams. We're talking massive structures, thousands upon thousands of tons of concrete and steel.
Built to handle the climate too, I assume? Floods, droughts?
Meticulously engineered for that, yes. They have to withstand the region's extremes. But the key is they work together.
As a system.
As one integrated system. Water flows from one dam to the next, spinning these huge turbines, generating electricity continuously.
And then getting that power out, and that's the grid part.
Right, and it's not just any grid. It's described as a high-tech smart grid. Think of it like the project's brain.
Smart how? What does that actually mean?
It means using artificial intelligence, AI, to manage the power flow in real time across potentially 15 different West African countries.
15. Wow. So places like Niger, Mali.
Landlocked nations, yes. But also coastal countries, potential economic powerhouses like Nigeria, Senegal. It's incredibly ambitious.
And the AI manages the distribution.
Constantly. It balances the load, predicts demand. So if Say factories in Ghana need a surge of power, the grid anticipates and sends it.
Or a village in Togo needs light for students.
The grid makes it available. The aim is to prevent blackouts, maximize efficiency, make power reliable everywhere. It also integrates backup power, like from solar farms.
That's incredible tech, but surely when this was announced, people must have thought, how is Burkina Faso going to pull this off?
Oh, absolutely. There was huge skepticism. Lots of critics basically scoffed, called it impossible, a pipe dream, given the country's history.
So how did they get it off the ground, especially the funding and the expertise? Did they go to the usual suspects like the World Bank or Western nations?
And this is where it gets really interesting geopolitically. Traoré made a very deliberate choice not to rely solely on those traditional partners.
Why? Because of the conditions often attached.
That seems to be a major factor. The idea was to avoid the strings that often come with Western aid or loans, the kind of conditions that might compromise sovereignty or the project's vision.
Oh, so where did they turn?
They strategically partnered with emerging economies. Think Cuba, Iran, Brazil.
Interesting choices. Different kinds of partners.
Very different. And these countries sent engineers, architects, technicians. They collaborated, shared expertise.
Which sends a pretty strong message, doesn't it?
A very strong message. It basically says Africa can choose its own allies. It can build its future without depending on the same powers that historically often exploited its resources.
It's a bold strategy, asserting autonomy right from the start.
Exactly. It's about building partnerships on their own terms. It's not without its own complexities, of course, but it was key to getting the project moving in the way they envisioned.
Okay, the engineering is massive, the politics are fascinating, but what about the people? You mentioned the sources talk about real impact.
Yes, and this is where this story gets really powerful, I think. The immediate impact on jobs is huge.
How many people are we talking about?
The reports say over 1.5 million people in Burkina Faso are already working on this project.
1.5 million, that's staggering.
It is. And they're not just doing manual labor, they're learning skilled trades. Pouring concrete, yes, but also programming the smart grid, operating heavy machinery.
And Traoré prioritized local hiring.
Deliberately. The idea was to build skills within the country, foster this sense of ownership, of pride.
Any specific examples that stand out?
The sources mention things like a young woman who used to be a street vendor, now operating a crane at a dam site.
Wow, what a change.
Or a young man who'd actually left for Europe looking for work, coming back home because he could get a job programming AI systems for the grid.
That's amazing, reversing the brain drain in a way.
In a very real way. But the economic impact goes way beyond construction jobs. Think about agriculture.
How does that connect?
The dams provide power for irrigation systems, reliable irrigation. That means farmers can grow crops year-round, even during the dry season.
Which must be transformative. What kind of crops?
Things like mangoes, tomatoes, rice, high-value crops, and they're not just selling them locally.
Exporting
To places like Dubai, even Europe. Burkina Faso is rapidly becoming an agricultural exporter, a regional powerhouse.
Incredible. And I heard something about tech companies too.
Yes, that's another fascinating angle. The reliable, clean power has attracted over 40 green technology firms.
40? Where are they based?
They're setting up near the dams, creating this kind of innovation hub. Some people are apparently already calling it the Silicon Valley of African energy.
That's quite a nickname. So, more jobs, innovation.
Exactly. High-skilled jobs, new industries, and then there's just the impact on daily life.
Back to the basics.
Back to the basics, but fundamentally changed. Children reading after dark without straining their eyes.
Hospitals running life-saving equipment without fail.
Yes, no more relying on noisy, expensive generators for critical care. Businesses using digital payments because the network is stable. Farmers running irrigation pumps whenever needed.
It really shifts electricity from being a luxury
to being a fundamental right, a tool for everyday life and progress. That's the transformation happening on the ground.
That scale of transformation is hard to ignore. What about the rest of the world? How are they reacting now that this impossible project is actually happening?
Well, remember that initial skepticism, especially from the West.
Yeah, the scoffing.
That's largely evaporated. Now, those same Western countries are, let's say, scrambling to get involved. They realize Africa's energy future is being shaped, and maybe they aren't in the driver's seat anymore.
So it's causing geopolitical ripples.
Like a geopolitical earthquake. It's really shaking things up. You have other major players eagerly stepping in.
Like who?
Countries like China, Russia, India. They're actively working with Burkina Faso. China's offering investments in satellite energy labs.
Cutting edge stuff.
Russia's sending specialized engineers. India's exploring how it might access the grid itself.
And Europe. They must be watching closely given their own energy needs.
Very closely. There's significant interest in Burkina Faso's clean energy. There's even serious talk, a proposal, for a $20 billion extension.
Extension where?
Under the Sahara Desert, to potentially supply North Africa and maybe even parts of Europe directly with clean energy from West Africa.
That's a game changer.
A complete game changer. Suddenly, Burkina Faso isn't just a recipient of aid. It's a potential major player in the global energy market.
Negotiating from a position of strength.
Absolutely. It's a powerful demonstration of breaking that old cycle of dependency, of exploitation. Africa setting its own terms.
So let's look down the road. 10 years from now, what could Burkina Faso look like? What's the long-term legacy here?
If this vision continues to unfold, you're looking at a country that's potentially unrecognizable from what it was.
In what ways?
Think high-speed trains connecting cities, green cities designed around sustainability, schools fully digitized with reliable internet access everywhere.
New industries taking root.
Definitely. Things like vertical farming, advanced manufacturing, all powered by this abundant clean energy. It creates the foundation,
A foundation for young people.
Exactly. For a generation to become engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, innovators within their own country, building on this platform.
And is this vision inspiring others in the region?
It seems to be. The sources suggest countries like Niger, Togo, Sierra Leone are watching closely, developing their own ambitious energy plans.
So it's creating a ripple effect.
A significant one. Traore's vision, whether you agree with his politics or not, is sparking this broader movement. A sense that Africa doesn't need to wait for outsiders.
It can solve its own problems.
With its own leaders, its own workers, its own ideas. It's more than just energy. It's a revolution in hope, possibility, and frankly, continental pride.
It's an incredible narrative. So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, for someone listening to this?
For me, the story of Burkina Faso and this $800 billion project is just a powerful reminder, isn't it, about the power of vision, of sheer determination.
And self-reliance.
Absolutely. It shows that even a nation facing significant challenges, a nation perhaps counted out, can achieve something truly monumental if it dares to dream big.
And acts on that dream.
It acts decisively. It forces us to reconsider our assumptions.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe. How crucial is foundational infrastructure, like reliable energy?
It can be the ultimate catalyst, the ultimate disruptor for development, for changing a nation's place in the world, even for the most unexpected players.
So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other impossible projects might be quietly reshaping other parts of the world right now under the radar?
Yeah. Exactly. And what could that mean for how we understand global power, progress, and potential in the years to come? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. We hope this deep dive into Burkina Faso's amazing journey